Actress Natalie Wood was intoxicated and angry after an argument between her husband and actor Christopher Walken when she stormed off a yacht this weekend and apparently fell into the sea. The report said there was no evidence of foul play in the 43-year-old actress's death.
For over 40 years, one chilling question has haunted Hollywood. A question whispered in documentaries, scribbled in police reports, and murmured during late-night interviews. And right at the center of it all stands Robert Wagner. Once celebrated for his charm and sophistication, Wagner became something else entirely. A living mystery, a husband trapped between love, guilt, and suspicion that never faded. Now, at 95, the shine of fame is long gone. And what's left behind is the truth he's carried alone since that freezing night in 1981. The night that shattered everything. It was Thanksgiving weekend, November 28, 1981, when Hollywood's golden couple, Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner, set sail on their yacht, the Splendor, for what should have been a quiet getaway near Catalina Island. Sailing with them were Natalie's Brainstorm co-star Christopher Walken and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. For Natalie, it was supposed to be a break, just a peaceful weekend between movie shoots, a small escape from the chaos of fame, but instead, it became the night that would define Wagner's entire life. The day started calm and lighthearted. Champagne was poured, laughter filled the air, and a few happy photos were snapped before dinner. Locals even remembered seeing the group at Doug's Harbor Reef restaurant, smiling, toasting to friendship, and enjoying the night. But as the drinks kept flowing, so did the tension. Walken later admitted that the talk shifted to Natalie's career, how she wanted to return to serious acting. And that's when Wagner's jealousy started to show. In his 2008 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Wagner himself admitted, "Jealousy, the best and worst of me." When they returned to the Splendor around 10 p.m., everything had changed. The warmth was gone. The captain recalled that the laughter had vanished, replaced by whispers and uneasy silence. Those silences soon erupted into shouting. Davern said Wagner suddenly smashed a wine bottle on the table, shards flying across the cabin, yelling at Natalie and accusing her of flirting with Walken. His voice, usually calm and smooth, trembled with anger. Walken tried to calm things down, but eventually backed away to his cabin, leaving the couple alone. Moments later, the night went still. Then silence turned to dread. Natalie was gone. Wagner said he thought she'd gone to bed, but when he realized she wasn't there, something was wrong. The yacht's small dinghy, the rubber boat used to reach the shore, was also missing. But Natalie had always been terrified of deep water. The idea that she'd take that dinghy out alone, barefoot, in her nightgown, made no sense to anyone who knew her. At 3:30 a.m., Wagner finally called the Coast Guard. Search teams scanned the dark ocean for hours, fighting freezing winds and black waves. And when dawn broke on November 29th, the truth surfaced, literally. Natalie's body was found floating face down, just a mile from the yacht. She was only 43. She wore a thin nightgown, socks, and a red parka, clothes far too light for the bitter cold. The coroner ruled it an accident, but the bruises on her arms and legs, the scratches on her neck, and her lifelong fear of water painted a darker picture. Hollywood went silent, but behind closed doors, the whispers never stopped. Jealousy, rage, regret. The three shadows that would follow Robert Wagner for the rest of his life. In the days after Natalie Wood's death, investigators rushed to piece together a story, one that looked neat, tidy, and scandal-free. According to Wagner, after the fight with Christopher Walken, Natalie had simply gone to bed. He claimed that sometime later, she must have tried to secure the yacht's dinghy. But that explanation left behind more questions than answers. And those questions still echo through Hollywood to this day. Wagner claimed that after hearing the dinghy bang against the yacht's hull, Natalie must have slipped and fallen into the dark water. It sounded believable enough to calm the public, at least for a while. But as new details began to surface, that story started to crumble fast. Hours later, the small rubber dinghy, the Valiant, was discovered drifting quietly in the waves. The engine was off, the key still in the ignition, and the oars neatly tied down, untouched. It didn't look like anyone had ever used it. Investigators started asking questions. If Natalie had really gone to secure the dinghy, why hadn't she untied the oars or turned on the motor? And even stranger, the light switch was off, and there were no footprints or marks showing she'd ever climbed aboard. Every new clue made the accident theory sound shakier by the minute. Then came the autopsy results, and things got even darker. Natalie's blood alcohol level was 0.14%, and traces of seasickness meds and painkillers were found in her system, enough to make her dizzy, weak, and vulnerable. But the real shock came from the bruises. Fresh dark marks on her arms, knees, and face suggested a struggle had taken place before she ever hit the water. In 2013, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office reopened the case and issued an update. Their findings suggested that Natalie's injuries may have happened before she entered the water. That one statement shattered the idea of a simple fall and opened the door to a far more chilling possibility. Then came the witnesses. Marilyn Wayne and John Payne, anchored nearby on their own boat, claimed they heard a woman screaming for nearly 15 minutes. "Help me! Someone please help me!" Wayne said the voice was desperate, terrified, and unforgettable. And then came a man's voice, calm but slurred. "Okay, honey, we're coming to get you." But no one ever came. The night fell silent again. Over the years, Robert Wagner's version of events changed, sometimes slightly, sometimes drastically. In 1981, he told detectives Natalie had simply vanished. Later, he said she went to tie up the dinghy. And in his 2008 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, he described it all as a tragic accident. But investigators weren't convinced. As Lieutenant John Carina of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department said in 2018, he's constantly changed his story a little bit, and his version of events just doesn't add up. By 2012, Natalie's official cause of death was changed to drowning and other undetermined factors. Detectives publicly named Wagner as a person of interest. They admitted that his timeline simply didn't make sense, but with no physical proof or direct witnesses, no charges could ever be filed. The case stayed stuck in limbo, somewhere between suspicion and heartbreak. For investigators, the truth always seemed just out of reach. For Wagner, it became an invisible weight, a shadow that no denial, apology, or interview could ever wash away. But one person refused to let the silence take over. Lana Wood, Natalie's younger sister. While Robert Wagner stepped back from Hollywood, Lana stepped into the spotlight with a mission: justice. She never accepted the official story. "My sister was terrified of water," she said again and again. She would never go near that dinghy, especially not in her nightgown. In her 2021 memoir, Little Sister, My Investigation into the Mysterious Death of Natalie Wood, Lana made a bold accusation. She claimed Wagner's jealousy exploded into something dangerous that night. She even said Captain Dennis Davern confessed to her that he had lied to protect Wagner. Her words reignited a fire Hollywood thought had burned out decades ago. According to Lana, Captain Davern told her that Wagner had shouted in anger, then a loud bang followed. Right after, Wagner allegedly ordered, "Don't turn on the lights! Don't call anyone!" Lana's accusation shook Hollywood to its core. Some people believed her, convinced she was chasing the truth that everyone else was too scared to touch. Others said she was just a grieving sister chasing ghosts. But one thing was undeniable. Her relentless push forced the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to reopen the investigation. In 2011, fresh witnesses stepped forward and old memories came flooding back. A fisherman, just 17 years old the night Natalie died, claimed he heard a woman's terrified cries echoing across the water. Another acquaintance recalled Wagner's temper back in the 1960s, painting a darker picture of the Hollywood gentleman everyone once adored. Every new detail chipped away at the neat version of events Wagner had stood by for decades. But even with mounting doubt, prosecutors still never pressed charges. Then came 2022, the twist no one expected. Police announced that Robert Wagner had been officially cleared of direct involvement. The case, they said, had reached its end. "All leads in the Natalie Wood case have been exhausted," read the official statement. For Lana, that wasn't justice. It was betrayal. "If he truly loved my sister," she said, "why has he stayed silent before justice?" Even today, Lana refuses to let go. She insists Wagner knows more than he's ever confessed. "He was the last person with her," she said, "and that silence is the loudest thing of all." Her words echo through decades of mystery, keeping the fire of suspicion alive while the rest of Hollywood tries to move on. After Natalie's death, Robert Wagner's world crumbled overnight. The man who once represented old-school class and Hollywood grace suddenly became a headline for all the wrong reasons. His polished image, years in the making, shattered the moment Natalie's body was pulled from the cold waters of Catalina Island. That night didn't just take his wife, it took his identity. The public demanded answers. The media demanded guilt. Tabloids splashed his face across front pages beside explosive words like murder, cover up, and jealous rage. Every question aimed at him carried one heavy, unspoken thought. Did you kill your wife, Wagner? The man, once at ease in front of cameras, began hiding from them instead. He canceled appearances, turned down interviews, and vanished from Hollywood's social spotlight. Friends later said he became a ghost of himself. Polite when seen in public, but hollow behind closed doors. For years, Wagner stayed silent, carrying the weight of rumors and grief on his shoulders. Then, in 2008, he finally broke that silence with his memoir, Pieces of My Heart. It wasn't written like a defense, but more like a confession of sorrow. Not a day goes by that I don't think of Natalie, he wrote. I loved her with all my heart, and losing her was the darkest moment of my life. His words hit deeply, but not everyone believed them. To some, he sounded like a broken man trying to heal. To others, he was rewriting the story to clear his name. And when the case was reopened yet again, all the old headlines came roaring back. Talk shows speculated, tabloids ripped through inconsistencies, and even police officers publicly said Wagner's story didn't add up. Still, he refused to speak. The silence meant to shield him only made the whispers louder. Then in 2020, a new voice entered the storm. One from the next generation. His daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, released the documentary Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind. For the first time, she stepped into the chaos her father had spent years avoiding. Her goal wasn't to dig up old scandals, but to show the side of her parents that got lost in decades of headlines. Love, grief, and everything in between. Still, the shadow of that night in 1981 continues to hover over it all, a mystery that refuses to rest. It's outrageous, Natasha said. People created this story about my dad, but he loved my mom. He would have given his life for her. She was only 11 when her mother died, and the memory still cuts deep. Her last moment with Natalie was a hug before the trip. She remembered the softness of her Angora sweater, the smell of her perfume, and the fear that crept up when she whispered, "Don't go." Her compassion didn't quiet the noise, though. Lana Wood refused to let go, continuing to accuse Wagner in public interviews, sparking a bitter feud that still hasn't faded. Families divided, fans took sides, and Hollywood watched in uneasy silence. Between all the accusations and defenses, one thing remained painfully clear: whether guilty or innocent, Robert Wagner has lived every single day since that night carrying the unbearable weight of Natalie Wood's absence. For Wagner, the real punishment was never the investigation. It was the silence that came afterward. By 2025, he was 95 years old, frail, quiet, and haunted by a past he could never escape. His body had weakened, but his mind still replayed that night like an old film stuck on repeat. Every argument, every sound, every second frozen in his memory. When he finally agreed to a recorded interview, his voice broke under the weight of everything unsaid. "People call me a monster, a liar, a coward," he said softly. "But the truth is simpler. I was a man in love who made mistakes, and I've paid for them every single day since." Those words weren't exactly a confession, but they weren't a denial either. They lived in that gray space between guilt and grief, where truth blurs with emotion and time. Wagner didn't sound like a man trying to clear his name anymore. He sounded like someone who had already accepted judgment, not from the world, but from himself. When asked what really happened that night in November 1981, he hesitated, then whispered, "After I argued with Chris, I went to find Natalie, and she was gone. I thought she needed time alone. I should have gone after her. Maybe she'd still be here." His eyes filled with tears. "I was the last man with her. I can't deny that." That phrase, "the last man with her," became something he carried like a curse. He said it often in his later years, each time sounding smaller, older, more broken. Friends who visited him said he barely spoke about Hollywood anymore. The fame, the fortune, the films, none of it mattered. Conversations always circled back to her. Natalie, the love he lost and the night that wouldn't let him rest. He refused to live near the ocean again. The sound of crashing waves, once soothing, had become unbearable. Instead, he lived inland, surrounded by family photos, fading memories, and quiet rooms that always seemed too big for one man. His daughter Courtney described his days as peaceful, but heavy. Every time he saw a photo of Mom, she said, he'd go completely silent. You could feel the sadness in the air. It never left him. To outsiders, Robert Wagner still looked like the man from Heart to Heart, polished, charming, always smiling for the cameras. But behind closed doors, He was something else entirely. A man undone by love and guilt, haunted not only by what people believed, but by what he could never forget. Even at 95, the ocean still called to him, not with comfort, but with the echoes of that night. The wind, the waves, the whispers of her name, they followed him everywhere. In his private notes, later shared by Natasha, Wagner wrote, "She was my compass, my direction. When she died, I lost all sense of where I was going."
He lived a long life, but one shadowed by what he could never explain. The sound of the water, the missing hours, the name he never stopped whispering. Natalie.
After 43 years, the truth about Natalie Wood's death still drifts somewhere between memory and mystery. Robert Wagner's final words didn't reveal guilt or innocence, just the unbearable weight of regret, the kind that no investigation, no interview, and no headline could ever erase. So here we are, decades later, still asking the same haunting question: was it a tragic accident, a burst of anger, or something in between? Only two people truly knew what happened that night, and one of them never came back. So what do you believe? Was Natalie Wood's death an accident, or the result of jealous rage? The ocean may keep its secrets, but the whispers will never stop. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you felt something real, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.